Hey, how you doing? Devin here from Lightning Lessons. We're going to talk about the major scale today. So hopefully this will be good as an introduction for those who haven't played the major scale before, but I think there will be enough here for some more intermediate to even advanced players about how to think about how to play the major scale and maybe even how to think about how intervals work on the guitar from one string to the other. So let's go ahead and dive in. Okay, so now what's the major scale? It's a series of notes that we use to divide the octave. Okay, so what's the octave? If we're talking about the key of C, right? This is just a C note, 3rd fret, A string. Okay, that's an octave because that's also a C. Now you might say an octave is like double the frequency of a reference note. So if this was, just pretend it was 200 hertz, this would be 400 hertz, right? It's a relationship of 1 to 2, basically. Okay, so now all we're gonna do is we're gonna divide it up, okay? And we're gonna use intervals of whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, okay? So what's a whole step? A whole step is the space of 2 frets on the guitar. Okay, so if we had C and we went up 2 frets, we're gonna have a D. That's a whole step, okay? But if we had C and we went up by 1 fret, that'd be a C sharp. That's just a half step right there, okay? So let's follow the pattern. So we have from here, we have a whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, okay? So the names of those notes would be C. You go ahead and play this with me. So you have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, okay? Now, we can also give scale degrees numbers. A scale degree is just any one of the notes in the scale. So again, play this with me. You would say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 1. Okay? So that's the major scale on one string going up, okay? Along the string. Now, this works fine. We already have the concept that we could be done there. What happens is on guitar, we want to play in what's called position playing a lot. Say we just don't want to move our hand around a lot, right? So in that case, we would do something like this. Okay, so now in order to figure that out, we either need to know where every single note on the guitar was at all times, right? That has its benefits and its challenges. Also, what we're going to do is basically just figure out how to find a half step or a whole step from one string to another, okay? And this concept comes from like lots of different places, but also I like the Guitar Fretboard Workbook by Barrett Taglerino. So you can pick up a copy of that book if you want to play along with some of these exercises here. So how are we going to find a whole step from one string to another? What do I mean by that? So I'm going to use D as an example. If I wanted to go to E, okay, I could go up, right? But what if I want to play it on the next string over? How do I figure that out, okay? Now, you might know from tuning the guitar that the 5th fret on one string sounds the same as the open adjacent string. And then crucially, except for strings 3 to 2. Okay? That's the 4th fret. Okay? 2 to 1 goes back to the 5th fret again. Okay, so you could think of it like a math problem. If 5 equals 0, if we're talking about fret numbers, 5 is 0, then 6 would equal 1, and 7 would equal 2. Okay, so in that case, if I was on this fret and I wanted to play here, the next string over, I could think about, oh, that was 7, minus 5 equals 2, right? Now, maybe simpler is just to remember this rule that if you go over 3 frets, then that's a whole step here, okay? So if that's how to play a whole step from one string to the other, how do we play a half step from one string to the other? want you to think about this for a moment. Now, yeah, if this was a whole step, you might think, oh, the notes are closer together, so it should be like this. That's actually increasing their distance, right? Because you have to think about how, it's a little bit of an abstraction, but you have to think about how that would be like playing farther up, okay? We need to be closer together. So to be closer together, we need to lower the pitch. That's going to be this direction, actually, okay? So if this was a whole step, 3 frets, 4 frets apart for the next string over is a half step, okay? So a whole step, 3 frets, half step, 4 frets, if we're talking about from one string to the next string over, okay? Now, crucially, we have an exception to this rule. That's on string 3 to 2, okay? Because these 2 strings are tuned in what's called a third, okay? So the whole step is gonna be only 2 frets, okay? And then the half step is only 4 frets apart, okay? So we have, if we were playing it like, I can do it across 3 frets, right? 4 frets for a half step, 3 frets for a whole step, 4 frets for a half step, 3 frets for a whole step, 4 frets for a half step. Now, crucially here, only 2 frets for a whole step, 3 frets for a half step, and again, back to 3 frets for a whole step and 4 frets for a half step, okay? So, a lot of information right there. Feel free to pause and kind of practice through that again or play along with what I was doing. If you're ready to move on, here we go. So we'll take the same concept of whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, and instead of doing it along one string all the way up, what we're going to do is we're going to play it across the strings, okay? So trying to optimize for not moving our hand too much. Okay, so I'm going to start here on the C, and you can play along with me on this. So I'm using my middle finger. C, 3rd fret, A string. Okay, so a whole step. That's fine for me right there, 2 frets. Now, again, we need another whole step. So here we go. We're doing our 3 frets over, 1 string over. So we have whole, whole, half is 1 fret. Whole. Now whole again. 3 frets. Whole. Half. Okay, let me do that again. So we're starting here. We have whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Okay, so now we played the same thing that we just did here, but we played it in one position without moving our hand. Now, if this is a new concept for you, I would recommend you probably pause right here and just practice that, right? You probably play that going forward and then backwards too. And the key thing here is to really be thinking about the interval relationships and thinking about the notes that you're playing, right? Because it's a little bit different than just like going and memorizing the scale diagram, which it's out there, right? You can go search the internet for this information, very easy to find, and you can just memorize that pattern, right? The idea behind this and the idea behind like the concept in the Guitar Fretboard workbook and all that kind of stuff is that you are basically constructing this from scratch. So you're building it, and by building this pattern, you're kind of understanding the relationships of how the guitar works from one string to another and how the intervals work together in the major scale, okay? So now I'm going to finish 2 more concepts here. We're going to extend the rest of the notes that fit in this same position and above and below, okay? So what do I mean by that? So if I'm here at a C, I can continue, okay? Because there's other notes available that still fit in this scale without me moving my hand too far away. So I'm starting right here. Okay, so I got my pinky, 5th fret, 3rd string. Now, we're going to start over, right? Because we're at the 1st degree of the scale. So we want a whole step, So right there, already something that's crucial information to remember between 3 and 2, strings 3 and 2. A whole step's only 2 frets apart, okay? So here we go. Whole, whole, half, whole, whole. Now the next 2 would be whole and then half. I could and finish the scale, but I'm gonna say we're just ending it there. You could stretch that if you want to. And that could still be considered position playing. But I'm gonna say we're good there, right? So again, from this 5th fret on the 3rd string, whole, whole, half, whole, whole, okay? And we're gonna end there. So again, and then going back down. Okay, you'll notice I switched my pinky there, and that's to kind of preempt and predict what's going to happen next. So let's start from the beginning. Let's play what we have so far. Okay, this is great. We started at the root, we went up 1 octave, we went beyond it, what was available in the position, and we came back down to the root. Now what I'm gonna add to that, the last little part I'll add for this video today, is that we're gonna play the notes available below this root and then come back up to the root again, okay? So what does that look like? If we're here on the C, okay, this is gonna be a little bit of the reverse, right? If this was scale degree 1, then 7 is a half step right there, and down to 6 is a whole step, down to 5 is a whole step, okay? Now, down to 4 is also a whole step, so we could stretch like that. I'm gonna maybe just omit that for today. So really what we have is 1, 7, 6, 5, and then we're just gonna go back up. 6, 7, 1, okay. So let's play together everything we have so far. Just for the playing together, we're just gonna get our fingers in the right spot. Then I'm gonna talk briefly about how I'd like you to practice this. So here we go. Okay, excellent. Now what did I add at the end there, right? This is a root shape. These are the octaves, okay? And then this would be like a C major chord, right? You could play it like this. Maybe you've seen it like this before. Okay. This is also kind of like a power chord maybe you've seen before. So you have the root, the 5th, and the root, right? And here's the 3rd right there. Okay? And so I just think it's kind of nice to play the chord in the position that you're in, right? When you finish the scale or when you start the scale. Now, how to practice this? I think that remembering to just get our fingers in a logical kind of position makes sense. People can differ about how they want to finger things. I probably wouldn't recommend like 1 finger. I think it defeats the idea of the position playing. But do you need to play everything like I'm doing here with this and the pinkies and everything? Some people might do this. I don't know about that part. I think the pinky would be good there. But I think really just the idea is that for this position, you're trying as much as possible to keep each finger exactly where it is. And then when you do have to shift, that might be because of, like I was going, when we go over here to the higher octave, if I'm on this 5th fret on the 3rd string, I'm using my pinky, but then I use my first finger here. And why is that? It's because I know that here, this is coming, right? And so this is a little bit about just how to reason about like fingering strategies. So I started here with the pinky. I went here first finger instead of middle finger, right? And that's again because I knew that I was needing to stretch up here to the 6th fret in the next phrase, right? In the next string. And then conversely, I go back to the pinky here because I know that I need to stretch down to the 2nd fret, and that's really makes a lot of sense with my first finger. Then I'm going to maintain that for the rest of the playing, okay? So yeah, how to practice includes logical fingerings, efficient fingerings, right? And then alternate picking on the right hand, I think, is a good idea. Generally, that means that if you're playing a down, you're going to play an upstroke on the next one. But when you're going from one string to the other, if you finish something on a down on one string, it makes sense to kind of what is called sweep to the next string and play another down, right? So, for example, now I'm going down, up, and then down. Because there's 3 notes on that string, I'm ending up on a down right here. I'm going to play a down again, okay? Up, and then down, and then I'm down again to the next string right there. Up, down, and I'm going down again right there, right? So as opposed to like if I strictly was saying no matter what, down then up, then down then up, that would look like this. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, which, no, that's not how I'm doing. Sometimes I have to double check how is it that I actually do this. Yeah, so really the idea is that down and then up, but if you're ending on a downstroke at the last note of a string before you switch to the next, it does make sense just to continue that straight through with that downward motion to the next string, okay? So we talked about fingerings, okay? We talked about picking. Now, how to practice this and how to think about it when you're practicing it. I would probably advise to be thinking about the whole steps and the half steps like we're doing, okay? And maybe also thinking about scale degrees. If you want bonus, you can also think about the notes that you're playing, which is most people would probably say that's the most fundamental. You could just be going C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, okay? That would allow you to, practice memorizing the notes and things like that. Another way to do it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, okay? And then yet another way to practice this would be to thinking about the whole steps and the half steps, reviewing the information about from one string to the next. If you want a whole step, that's going to be 3 frets, right? And if you want a half step, it's going to be 4 frets, except for from string 3 to 2. If you want a whole step, it's 2 frets. If you want a half step, it's 3 frets, okay? So that would look like this. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, okay? So sometimes with many options, that actually just results in a paralysis by analysis, and then we don't do anything. So it's probably good just to choose one idea. So either choose for a time, I'm just going to say the scale degrees. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. Okay, or I'm just going to say C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Or I'm going to say the whole steps and the half steps. Stick with that for a while. When that feels comfortable, move on to the next thing. And again, to finalize the idea of how you're practicing this, to play it, I think makes the most sense to go start at the octave, go up as high as you can within that position in the scale without really moving your fingers too far up or down, right? And then go below the octave and come back up on the octave. Really, you want to emphasize that you're in the key of C, right? Just briefly, I'll show you what I mean as kind of like something I probably wouldn't do, which is to start on like the lowest note available in the position that's not the root, right? To me, that's not really emphasizing that we're playing the C major scale, It kind of almost seems a little bit like it's like F Lydian, right? It kind of, that's just a reference to the mode that would be. It seems like we're kind of emphasizing the F. So if we're in C major scale, we're going to emphasize the C's, right? And really kind of like, make a case for that tonality. So what it would look like, again, I throw in playing the chord at the end because I think that sounds nice. I think it's a nice way to kind of anchor the practice. Okay. I hope this is helpful for you. I realize that, not every explanation is perfect. If there's certain things that I've said that are unclear or certain things that have come up that are kind of not being addressed in this video, questions, comments, anything like that, feel free to put them in the comments below. I hope that it's helpful, and I hope that this is something that is a good introduction for you. In the next videos, I will go over how to play this in the other positions, of which there's a total of 5 that I think make the most sense. Thanks a bunch for checking it out, and happy playing. I'll see you soon.